Welcome back, Twisters. Nick here, and I'm going to be previewing the Colorado Avalanche versus the St. Louis Blues here in the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs. Here's how I'm going to be doing this. So we'll quickly look at the season series and the various records for these teams. Then I'll look at the key team statistics. We'll look at 5 things to watch for in this series, and then I will make my prediction, and I want to know your prediction for this series down in the comments below. And hey, you can let me know your predictions for the whole playoffs. Have at it down there. Just be respectful. If you want to disagree, please do so. That is most excellent of you. So let's have some fun. Let's jump into this, ladies and gentlemen. So for the season series, the Colorado Avalanche won 5 of the 8 meetings. They were 5-3-0. Every game was decided in regulation, and the Avs outscored the Blues in this season series 26-21. The last set of games came after the trade deadline. That was 4 games that were between April 14th and 26th. The teams split those meetings 2-2, and the Blues actually outscored the Avs by a 14-12 margin. Let's look at the various records for these teams. So for the Avs, they were, of course, the President's Trophy winners this year and tied for first in points percentage with a 39-13-4 record. They were very, very hot down the stretch, 8-2-0. That was tied for the best in the league with a few other clubs out there. At home, they were a very impressive 22-4-2 in the Mile High City, and they were 17-9-2 on the road. As for the Blues, 27-20-9 was their record. That was 14th in terms of point percentage. 6-1-3 down the stretch, so pretty good hockey there. At home, they didn't do all that well. They were 12-11-5, but on the road, where they'll be starting out, they were 15-9-4. Now let's look at some key team statistics here. So goals for average, Colorado Avalanche tops in the NHL, 3.52 goals per game. St. Louis, a respectable 2.98, that was 13th. Goals against, the Avs, very good once again, 2.36 goals against, that was 3rd best, and the Blues were 2.98 goals against, that was 19th. Now let's look at power play. So the Avs, pretty good, 22.7%, that was 8th, and the Blues also were very good with the man advantage. They were at 23.2, that was 6th in the NHL. And then I like to couple this with penalties drawn because you draw more penalties, you get more chances with the man advantage. So Colorado, 8th best power play, and 4.33 penalties drawn per game. That was 2nd in the NHL. As for the Blues, they didn't draw that many themselves, 3.2. That was 23rd. And then let's flip the script here with penalty kill. So the Avalanche, 83.1%. That was 8th. Although I do remember them being in the top 3 for a lot of the season. And for St. Louis, they were at 77.8%. That was only 25th. So you can see some disparity there between the Avs, power play, and overall special teams versus the Blues. And then in terms of penalties committed, the Avalanche averaged 8 minutes and 54 seconds. That was 21st fewest. And the Blues were at 8 minutes and 8 seconds. That was 18th fewest. 2 more stats I want to talk about here. So shot disparity, that is your shots for per game minus your shots against per game. So I look to see if you have a net negative or a net positive. And the Avalanche, I think they were tops in the NHL by a country mile, 9.2 positive. So they averaged 9.2 shots per game more than they surrender. And as for the Blues, they were a minus 0.8. So overall, a shot disparity between these two teams of 10 in favor of Colorado. And then in terms of face-offs, Colorado pretty good, 51.6%, which was 8th, but the Blues were actually better, 53.4%. That was 4th. All right, guys, 5 things to watch for in this series. So first of all, the Blues did a very good job of righting the ship the last 5 weeks. In their last 18 games, they finished with an 11-4-3 record. And I said this, they were for a while there looking like they were going to just completely free fall out of playoff contention. And I said, look, if there's a team that knows how to overcome adversity with all the injuries and everything, it's the St. Louis Blues. And sure enough, they did a magnificent job down the stretch there. So they also went 6-0-1 against the Minnesota Wild. I thought that was really interesting in that stretch of 18 games. They outscored their opponents by quite a bit. They actually tallied 65 goals in those 17 games. And what was definitely important for this team, they weren't getting that many points from the back end for a large part of the season, especially since Alex Pietrangelo left for Vegas. But Torey Krug really came through in those last 18 games. He only played 13 of them, but he had 13 points. He was a +6. And Vince Dunn, you don't really know him much by his offense, but even though he only played in 7 of those final 18 games, he did tally 8 points. So it's good to see the Blue Liners putting up some points. Storyline number 2, the Avalanche have a large advantage in shots and penalties drawn. So I already pointed out the statistics earlier. That shot disparity between the two teams, it is in favor of the Avalanche by a margin of 10, and the Avs are second in the NHL in penalties drawn. However, I looked at their last 10 games. They've actually been pretty cold with the man advantage. They were only 5 for 32, 15.6%. But of course, nonetheless, if you're drawing penalties, that still tilts the ice for the most part because you're keeping the puck in your opponent's zone, and they're going to get tired easily by having to, adjust to all the quick action, all the quick passes and shots and corralling the puck and whatnot. So I still think that certainly is in Colorado's favor. And overall, the Avs, when I looked at their last few games, they did a good job of getting some secondary scoring. It was not all the top line, as good of a season as especially Rantanen has had this year. I was watching a few of those games down the stretch just to make sure they won the President's Trophy. Thank you, Avs. And in that last handful of games, I saw players like JT Compher scoring a hat trick, straight out of Compher. Tyson Jost got on the board a couple of times. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, a defensive French army knife, as I like to call him, he chipped in a couple of goals. And Jonas Donskoy put a nice cap on a good season for him as well. So it wasn't just MacKinnon and Rantanen out there. And another reason why Colorado has such a great shot disparity is because they can generate offense from just about anybody on the team. But Cale Makar, as fantastic of a season as he has had, you really have to tip the cap to both Sam Girard and Devon Toews. He had a great year for Colorado. That was maybe the best low-key acquisition over the offseason. The next storyline I want to get into, Ryan O'Reilly versus Nathan MacKinnon. That, to me, is clearly the key matchup. And I say that because O'Reilly is just defensively such a good player. He's won a Selke, of course, and a Conn Smythe. He had 43 takeaways this year to 24 giveaways, and he won 58.8% of his faceoffs. That is the second best in his career. Nathan MacKinnon, I was actually surprised because he isn't that good in the faceoff circle. He was 48.5% this year, which was the best in 4 years for him, which, that's good. But still, O'Reilly, by winning more draws, is able to take away opportunities from that top line. And the thing here is that MacKinnon, he wasn't the finisher this year. I thought that he was going to score 27, 30 goals, something like that, but he only ended up with 20. But he had so many assists, especially with Mikko out there, because a lot of that offense was coming from MacKinnon actually creating opportunities himself. So O'Reilly has to shadow him. And I thought this was very odd because you look at MacKinnon against the Blues this year, he tore it up, man. 8 goals, 6 assists, and a +3 rating. So 14 points in just 8 games there. So I'm not exactly sure what to expect from this matchup, but, don't lose sight of that absolutely. Storyline number 4. Philipp Grubauer can neutralize the strong Blues power play. So the Blues, as I mentioned earlier, 6th in the NHL on the man advantage with a 23.2 conversion rate. But Philipp Grubauer had a .909 save percentage shorthanded. That's really, really good for shorthanded. His last 7 starts, he only conceded 2 power play goals, 12 total in 7 starts. So that is just over 1.5 per game. And he had a .937 save. And then you look at his 19 postseason starts the past 2 seasons, he had a 2.15 goals against, a .924 save, and 2 shutouts. He also had 7 shutouts overall on the season. So Grubauer certainly in the Vezina conversation, and especially when he finishes the season as strongly as he did. And lastly, now I as a Sharks fan, I did watch the Blues a handful of times against my favorite team, and the guy who was really a thorn in our side was Jordan Kyrou. So what I did was I took a look at how the team does as a whole when Kyrou is producing. Check this out, guys. He might be the X factor in this series. So Jordan Kyrou, in games where he registers at least a point, the Blues have a record of 17-3-3. Now, that's not even half of the games this season, but Kyrou, if he's getting involved early on, and I like the Avalanche's depth overall, but I think maybe Kyrou, if he's engaged, he can maybe kind of create a mismatch there I assume he's on the third line now because his minutes are kind of down. He was playing top line earlier when the Blues had tons of injuries, but correct me in the comments if I'm wrong there. Kyrou on the season, 55 games played, 14 goals, 21 assists for 35, and 32 of those points are even strength. And I mentioned earlier, Philipp Grubauer, really good at killing penalties himself with a .909 save. So Kyrou is able to help generate a lot of 5-on-5 offense. So that's going to be very important against Colorado. And so Kyrou, this 23-year-old that we don't really know all that much about, he's starting to come into his own here in the NHL. He was also second on the team in takeaways with 32. So here's my prediction moment here. Now, I mentioned this in tweets and I mentioned this in a previous video. I said to myself, I wouldn't be all that surprised if the Blues pulled up this upset. And I wanted to find a reason why I could really make a strong case. And Jordan Kyrou, as great of a season as he's had, I don't think he's giving me a strong enough case here. Binnington hasn't been great. He's been serviceable, and the team has done a nice job of generating a lot of offense. But here's the thing, Colorado has evolved into such a great club at both ends of the ice. You cannot expect to outscore Colorado. You cannot outscore your problems when facing that team. And the Blues, as good as they are on the road, the Avs have been so good at home as well. And playing in the Mile High City for a couple of games, that could certainly create an advantage for them. So overall, I am going to pick the Avalanche on this. I know I wanted to go with one really, really, really bold upset. I had the Wild beating the Golden Knights, but I'm sorry, so far I'm accurate, right? Because the Wild are up 1-0. We'll see what happens there. But I am going to pick the Avs, and I'm going to pick them to win this series in 5 games. I only have one other series going 5 games, so I'll stick with 5 for this one. But you guys let me know down in the comments below. And just to round off my first round predictions, I'll just regurgitate all that. So I have Penguins over Islanders in 6. And the Isle have a 1-0 series lead already. Bruins over Capitals in 5, so the Bruins would have to win 4 games in a row. Hey guys, come on now. I picked the Blues at the start of the 2018-19 season to win the Stanley Cup. I'm doing okay for myself here. Plus my cup pick before the season started was the Hurricanes. So I will redeem myself, my friends. I had the Hurricanes over the Predators in 6. Panthers over the Lightning in 7. Damn, that was such a great game 1 today. Had so much fun watching that. I've got the Leafs over the Canadiens in 7 as well. I've got the Oilers over the Jets in 6. I've got the Wild over the Golden Knights in 6. And of course, the Avalanche over the Blues in 5. So you guys can let me know your predictions down in the comments below. Make sure that you hit the like, subscribe, stay in the loop for all things Twisted Wrister Hockey for the playoffs and beyond. You can also see the video description because I've got a link to our merchandise. You don't want to miss out on that. We've got hats, hoodies, t-shirts, stickers, all that good stuff, baby. I'll catch you Twisters later. You have a good one out there. Ciao.